The Labatt Brewing Company was founded by John K. Labatt in 1847 in London, Ontario. Soon after, John Tilden came to work there. But let's start from the beginning, shall we? Like most people, John started out as a baby, and like Labatt, John also started his journey in London, Ontario. From there, we know very little because record-keeping was shoddy at best in those days. But evidence of John's accomplishments begin to arise when he graduates from Western University. From there, he pursued a career in baseball, playing first base for both the Thorndale Angels and Arva Athletics. A strong competitor and natural talent, John would dominate his league, taking home the Most Valuable Player of the Year award. The fact that he was playing with senior citizens at that point never seemed to diminish his achievements. That year would prove to be the last time John would ever be the youngest player on his team again. The following year, John opted to compete against children, and that same year he reached his ultimate baseball goal, standing beside the World Series trophy. With that challenge met, John moved on to the next chapter in his life. Perhaps it was his love of being part of a team, or perhaps it was all the beer drinking in the parking lot after the games. But John's next steps took him to the doors of Labatt. The year was 1972. It was the year that gave us the beginnings of the Watergate scandal and the last manned lunar mission. The compact disc was developed by RCA, the arcade version of Pong was released, and DNA was mentioned in a publication for the first time. The first episode of The New Price is Right aired. MASH debuted on CBS, and The Godfather topped the box office. The last execution by guillotine was carried out in France, and Bob Douglas became the first black man inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. The Dallas Cowboys won their first Super Bowl. And oh yeah, this happened.
Here's another shot, right by the score!
In fact, on a list of relevant events of 1972, John Tilden starting at Labatt usually doesn't make the cut. But that year, the former semi-pro first baseman stepped through the doors of Labatt for the first time. 37 years later, he's leaving them as the longest-serving and therefore oldest marketer in the history of the company. The man they would one day call the Oracle, or John Tillman if you're Miguel Patrizio, started his career at Labatt in the IT department. You're probably thinking, what does an IT guy do in 1972?
This is a delicate piece of machinery. You don't just shove paper in it. You don't bang on the buttons. You don't sit on the glass. If you want it to work, you have to treat it with respect.
9 years later, John decided the computer fad was over and moved over to the marketing department. As a testament to this, John would never even own a cell phone, BlackBerry, or even laptop. Some would say it was a premature move, but for John, it was an obvious step in the right direction. John would remain in the marketing department for the next 28 years, becoming a planner and analyst extraordinaire. John became known for his unbelievable knowledge of the company and the category. You could ask John why shares spiked in July of '94, and he could tell you on the spot. But his knowledge went far beyond that. John also had an unbelievable amount of knowledge about his coworkers as well. Your tie rotation, your weekly drink consumption, your menstrual cycle. John had a chart for that and could call it to memory in a moment's notice. Because of his ability, he was given the nickname the Oracle publicly and Creepy John privately. He became the Rain Man of the beer market.
Yeah, Tuesday we have pancakes.
Pancakes.
Anybody in the marketing department today knows that going to speak to John was the #1 agenda item on the marketing training program.
The Oracle will see you now.
A lot has happened in John's time at Labatt. For starters, most of his coworkers were born.
Whoa.
But John was also there for the arrival of the long neck bottle and twist-off cap. He saw the launch of some successful brands like Labatt Ice, Labatt Genuine Draft, and Budweiser in Canada. And unfortunately, he was also around for this guy.
So when you think of summer, think of good times, good friends?
New Labatt Lager and Lime. It's beer with a hint of lime.
Now that looks refreshing.
Through those years, John has survived 15 marketing VPs, 14 presidents, 6 offices, and 1 whitewater rafting team-building exercise. John will be remembered for many things by those he leaves behind at Labatt. He was a man you could always trust to tell it like it was. And if he wasn't at his desk, you always knew you could find John in the pub having a Carlsberg Light or at one of his favorite restaurants in the city. John will work his last day on November 24, 2009. Then the arduous task of replacing a man of his talents and cleaning out his hundreds of reports on coworkers' personal information begins.
Talking here about department heads and their names and shit, and then there's these other files that are just like numbers arrayed. Numbers and dates and numbers and numbers and dates and numbers and... I think that's the shit, man.
His departure will leave a huge gap that will be hard to fill. It will, however, also lower the average age of the marketing department, allowing them to finally qualify for group benefits.
And there was much rejoicing.
A ball player, a marketer, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a guy who knew a creepy amount about his coworkers. To us, John was all those things, but most of all, he was a friend. Good luck with everything, John. You will be missed.
So when you're smiling, just say Labatt Blue, the true blue lager beer. Blue, 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 call for blue.